everybody needs that extra cash flow to help them be more innovative, to hire their staff, to train their staff better. And I think by us standing together and being the change makers, we can really start to drive a cultural change across the world that will then hopefully in 10, 20 years' time, our payment landscape will look completely different.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I am your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest is from the UK, the United Kingdom, and she is the founder of Intelligent Revenue Limited. Leanne Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm great to be here.
Glad to have you, and I'm actually excited about today's topic, and I'm not going to reveal that just yet because I know intelligent revenue, our listeners probably thinking, what the heck is intelligent revenue? And I like the sound of it. But before we get into all of that, Leanne, please tell us about you and your career journey leading up to this point where you're doing what you're doing.
Okay, well, fantastic. So I started my entrepreneurial journey really young. It was back probably when I was about 8 or 9. I decided I was going to make scrunchies. And so I found fabric and I went to my first market. Fast forward many years later, and I started a communications company, and I've been very involved in digital marketing for many years and how you get people to open your emails, how to get more interaction with them. But as we all know, running a company is hard work. And so with that came the pains of not getting paid at times and having to figure out how to get those payments in. So I've done sales, I've done online marketing, web development, very much how to connect with your audience. And that brings me to today, where we live in the UK and I run a digital marketing agency, and that's where Intelligent Revenue started.
Very cool. Well, we'll get into a little bit of what Intelligent Revenue does, but just with regard to your career journey as an entrepreneur, I mean, you started with scrunchies and actually going to a physical market, you know, the beginnings of commerce. And what were some of the obstacles in your entrepreneurial journey that you faced?
Let's see. Gosh, that's an interesting question. I would say because I started really young and I knew that I wanted to run a business right from the get-go. When I was 21, 22, it was really hard for people to take me seriously. So I suppose my confidence was not where it should have been because I let a lot of people, break my confidence. I stopped trusting my own instincts. But as I've gone through my entrepreneurial journey, through my career, I always find I was a bit ahead of the curve. And so I suppose Einstein was told he was mad, and Thomas Edison was told he was mad. And I can say, quite honestly, there's quite a few times I've been told I was mad. But luckily, my husband is a great supporter and he always kept me going no matter what. So, it was just a case of believing in myself and not being scared to try new things regardless.
So true. I'm sure many of our listeners relate to that. And we start out with being young, thinking that we don't have enough experience. And then when we get older, we're like, if only we could be young again. It's like...
Oh, if I could be 21 again.
Yeah, exactly. All that energy. If we could mix the two together, all that energy and, big dreams with, wisdom and all of that good stuff. So that's the beautiful part of life, is it's kind of always mixing as it goes. Now, you did mention one of the big obstacles was getting paid. I'm really curious, that led to you starting Intelligent Revenue. What was it that was difficult for you?
In terms of getting paid?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what? It's interesting how when you're starting a business and running a business, the last thing you think you're going to struggle with is getting people to pay you. And, you've done the work. You've done all the hard work. They've loved it. Now all they have to do is actually pay the invoice. And I've had far too many stories actually through my life. From when I was younger, my dad had struggled with payments in his business, and he actually had to close his business, and we just about lost everything. Right the way through to when I started out as a copywriter, I had a very well-known cooking duo that I did work for, and they had hired an agency to manage the kind of freelance staff. And I literally had to threaten to go to the papers because they just could not get my money out of them. And so, that was one instance. Another big kind of blip that I can remember is a sheriff of the High Court who didn't pay me for months and months on end. Obviously, in hindsight now, I should have stopped it much sooner, but I kept hoping that she would kind of come to the party and pay what was owed. And I realized that, just sending emails, reminder emails, just actually doesn't get you paid necessarily. It should do, but sometimes it takes a lot more than just a couple of reminder emails.
I have some exciting news for you. The Successful Bookkeeper podcast now has a free global virtual event called the Successful Bookkeeper Summit. That's right, it's a 2-day online conference featuring 20 incredible speakers from the bookkeeping, accounting, and business worlds, some of which include best-selling author of Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, and pricing expert Mark Wickersham, to name just a few. At the summit, you'll receive tips on how to price your bookkeeping services, market your business, hire great staff, and so much more. It all begins on December 2nd, 2021. To secure your free spot, visit thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Again, that's thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Don't miss this chance to rise up and change your bookkeeping business in 2022. Register today, and I'll see you at the summit. Now, let's get back to our interview. I do know my dad ran a small business, and there were several times in his career where he had literally had to go and take these people to court. And I remember him bringing me. I actually went to court with him and watched the proceedings and how it all went. It was some hard lessons. And in your case, it was a very hard lesson because it actually ended the business. And I'm sure our listener right now is thinking, yes, for themselves, experiences with that, and as well seeing their customers go through this and clients go through this, which, at the end of the day, this money, if it doesn't come, can often have really, really downsides, and people are trying to put food on their table.
Yeah.
And so this is a massive issue.
Yes, massive, bigger than any of us think it is.
And so tell us a little bit about that. That this is one of those things that it's a part of our society. I mean, there's debt collectors, there's, courts, there's collections, there's all this stuff that goes on, but it's not something that often we talk about every day. That's for sure. What is the size of the issue?
So it was interesting. I always felt very much like I was alone, like I was doing something wrong. And as I delved deeper into this, the magnitude of the problem is it costs £700 billion a year in late payments, in uncollectibles. And if I think in US money, it's equivalent of $1 trillion a year that it costs small businesses. That's massive. Even worse is that 7.5% of that just gets written off because it either never gets paid or it gets paid so late that the businesses had to literally write it off because, they've had to move on. And so if you think how much money is just disappearing for no reason, it's for work done, but it doesn't make its way back into investment, back into innovation, paying staff bonuses at Christmas time. I actually couldn't believe how big the problem was, even though I'd felt it in my own business, to realize that it's a worldwide problem was quite eye-opening.
And why is it such a big problem?
I think it's because it's just become acceptable. It's just become a way of doing business. There's some big companies that actively use it as a cash flow management strategy. There was a survey that I looked at. They reckon 94%, somewhere around there, of finance managers admitted to using late payments as a way of keeping cash in their own businesses. And because it's become such an acceptable way of doing business, nobody challenges it. I mean, the little guy does, because he needs to put food on the table. We need to feed our families. We need to clothe our kids for school. So we really feel it, but then we don't challenge it because we don't want to disrupt that relationship. We don't want to damage the relationship. And so I think as small business owners, we're allowing it to slide because we're trying to balance what we need and what we think is acceptable in terms of chasing those payments.
That is a huge, huge issue. And have you seen, we've gone through this pandemic. How has the pandemic accelerated this?
Well, for some companies, they literally froze payments there and then. And the people who suffered the most were your small businesses, because obviously big companies were trying to preserve cash because nobody really knew what was going to happen. And so we've seen a massive 22% increase in late payments during the pandemic. Luckily for some countries, they did put help in place. So the UK was really good at providing furlough support, providing bounce back loans for your micro businesses. They put all kinds of measures in, but not all countries were able to do that. And for some countries, when they did finally do it, it was too late for the small business.
Wow. And so why would you say that clients are afraid of going after these payments? Like you mentioned that they were, the pandemic has made it worse, but now you mentioned that the small and medium-sized businesses are scared or worried about chasing clients down. Why is that?
I think because we've grown up in an era where you don't talk about money. It's taboo to talk about money and to ask for money. And so we were taught that as we were growing up in families. And I think there's a lot of families where nobody in the family knows what the father or the mother earned because it's just not discussed. And so that carries over into our adult life. And because it's considered taboo to talk about money, it can't be right to then ask for money. And so there's this awkwardness and this fear of upsetting someone. But the reality is, if they're not paying you, then are they really a customer, or are they just somebody you did some work for free? So, it's being confident and being able to stand for yourself. Like I said earlier in the conversation, I often felt like I was on my own and that it was only happening to me. And it was only when I started digging deeper into the state of late payments that I realized this is happening to everybody. And actually, if we all stood together, we could have a way of changing the late payment culture rather than being all too scared to say anything about it and allowing it to continue.
So true. And in the bookkeeping industry, there's often this talk about rescue jobs or cleanup jobs where the bookkeeping firm will actually work with a business that's several years behind, big messes to clean up. and a lot of time and energy goes into fixing and repairing it. And many, if I've heard of our listener getting burned, that's one area where they don't get paid on these cleanup jobs. They do all this work and it's like, oh yeah, we're all cleaned up. You're all good to go. And that'll be $10,000. And they're like, I'm not going to pay you, for whatever reason. And so we talk a lot about getting paid up front and these, some different strategies to deal with that. But, you can think about, when you think about someone who did not, have good practices around managing their business on the finances side, not ending up paying, it's kind of like, gee, who's going to pay you? The person who's really on top of their finances or somebody who's not? It's not hard for us to, 2020 look at that and go, those are the most likely people that wouldn't pay you because they don't have integrity around their finances, period. Now, who are some of the other bad players out there in your opinion? Is it larger businesses, or is there any kind of trend there?
So interestingly, the assumption is that it's the larger businesses not paying. But from all the research that we've done of our own, of what we've read, that the likes of Sage and Xero have done, it turns out that actually your worst payers are your smaller companies. And the reason for that is that the reason they haven't paid is because it's likely they haven't been paid and they don't know how to deal with their own late payments. So it has this knock-on effect with, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Well, that circle just keeps going and going and going. And so the trend is that if everybody pays on time, then everybody else will be paid on time. And so there's that real chicken and egg scenario. But that's what we found from all our research, from talking to people. And although big companies tend to have longer payment terms, when they say they're going to pay you in 30 days or 60 days, generally they do. It's just the knock-on effect of being paid late everywhere else, those 60, 90 days really have an impact.
Very interesting. And I would say our listener, we're dealing with the smaller businesses, so they would see this. But the other interesting side from bookkeepers is they actually have a window into those finances, a very clear window into whether they will be paid. But strangely enough, I mean, I can tell you, I've heard very, very many times where our listener knows that there's a payment challenge or they're not getting paid, but they know that there's money and that still have difficulty collecting. It's like, oh, they owe me $5,000 and they just took their entire family on a trip to Hawaii. And I'm not getting paid. So I'm not able to pay for, my family and the things that I need to do in my business, but yet they watch their clients pay all these other people and do all these other things. And they're standing by as witness to their own situation being impacted, but yet they're powerless to do it, or powerless for whatever reason. There's something there, as we started to talk about some of the barriers, not the stigma, not wanting to call people out, not wanting to hold up their value and get this money. And so it's a big problem. And I'm sure our listener also has many clients that they see go through this again and again and again. How does intelligent revenue begin to solve this problem?
So what we do is, because it is such a big problem and it's heartbreaking for any business owner on either side of the equation to see all their hard work going down the drain. And so we look at it from where do we start this conversation with a debtor? And from all our trials, we found that it doesn't help to wait until there is a problem, till it's too late. So we go right back to the beginning of the relationship where everyone's happy, everyone's smiling, everyone's doing things. You've got a cleanup job. Yes, come fix it, come sort it out. And actually make sure that the terms and conditions that are put in place right at the start of that relationship are managed and very clearly state what the late payment terms are and get explicit consent. So very much from a marketing point of view, but get explicit consent. And then what we do is we start monitoring those interactions. So we start reading digital body language. And as we do that, we can start to pick up, does this client respond to all emails, or do they only respond to the good emails, but when the invoice drops, they don't open those emails, sorry. And so we start to get a picture. Does this client always pay about a week late, or do they pay on time every month? Or they used to pay on time and now they're starting to pay later. So we can pick that up. And so by doing that, we're able to guide the creditor. So whether it's a bookkeeper or a client dealing with their own debtors, we can start to say, hang on, things are starting to go off track here. And so we give them actionable strategies to bring that relationship back online and make sure that relationship is going down a positive route. And so that's how we kind of start to have an impact on how the relationship progresses. And if you think, so somebody once told me the squeaky wheel gets the most oil. And you mentioned something similar earlier, is if you don't say something, if you don't send the reminders, if you're not on top of it, you're going to get put to the bottom of the payment list. And so we help make sure that you're on top, that you're the first one, because it's like, please, this guy just never stops he never stops asking for his money in a positive way. But at least they know that you're going to take action if they don't pay. And that's how we kind of try and mold that relationship, guide where you're going with your credit controls to make sure that you aren't left short at the end of the month.
So true. So interesting. I worked in an early part of my career, I worked for Dun & Bradstreet, which this is what they do for typically larger organizations where they're collecting credit information from banks, from telephone companies, as many sources as they can. And then they have algorithms to determine what's the risk score based on all of these clients. And large organizations use those risk scores to identify where there might be risks. So it's it's intelligent around being intelligent around the risk. The challenge is that it's built for larger organizations for the most part. Mm-hmm. Small businesses, there's a lot less data, so it's hard to actually get a true and real score on those small organizations. What I love about what you're doing is that you're using the data that you have and that every small business would have to actually come up with some intelligence around the risk and what's going on. And I think it's really exciting in that when you have this, it's kind of like the canary in the coal mine, mm-hmm. Poor canary, telling you what's potentially going to happen. You can actually do something proactively about it and get paid. And not only yourself, I think, but your clients, being able to help your clients. So exciting, because if we hear these stories, you read about these stories. I just read one in the paper about a restaurant that amassed $34 million in debt. And through this journey, they told stories of like different restaurant entities that they had owned where they went, oh, it's like we're bankrupt. Okay, so we left $1 million on the market. And it was so interesting that they were like, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, we're talking $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 hits that they're taking because they allowed it to go on and on. Well, look, this business was running. It was not $1 million business. It was likely a $12 million business. So it was the people who allowed it to happen that actually got left hanging the bag. Now, the interesting thing on that too is that those businesses, when asked, those businesses said, well, we're going to charge them more on the next go. So these people just kept doing it, and the businesses knew. It's like, it's a game. It was this game, but the ones left holding the bag were literally not playing the game very well. And the story goes on. It ended up being $34 million of debt that's out there in the marketplace. That's a lot of money. These are farmers. These are small butchers, bespoke, companies that make these, it's probably a big part of their business. I'm sure there's business casualties involved in this. So this intelligence is often not available because why? most business owners are so busy running, they're busy chopping up the meat or clipping up the vegetables. They're not paying attention.
Absolutely. And that's probably one of the things that I'm most excited about for our app is that you're not on your own, because we benchmark against all payees. So, the farmer, the butcher, the candlestick maker, they are sitting there going, is it going wrong? Am I right? They're relying on their gut feel as to, is this move, have they lost this money? Is it going to come in? Maybe the guy's about to do a runner. But what we do is we benchmark against all payees. So if we have 1,000 or 10,000 or 1 million users on our platform, we can start to see those patterns and the things that, you can pick up the anomalies very quickly. And I can say to the user, hang on, we've seen this before. And the trend when this happens means they're about to do a runner. You need to get in there fast. And that's the thing that I'm probably the most excited about, is that we can start to give that intelligence, start to give intelligent feedback to make better decisions.
And that really is what it comes down to, is those better decisions, because those people in the article, it talked about how, it was a big piece of their business. How do you say, it's this hope. They're living in hope. It's like, well, it's good for our business because we're selling all of this product and we're getting revenue, but it's actually not turning into profit because they're not getting paid. And then they're left hanging, with a $50,000 unpaid, unrecoverable debt, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So this tool really provides what I can see, and that's why I think I'm excited about it, is it provides a little bit of data to go with the intuition, because most of those people probably knew that this was not right. And yet it's like there's not enough front of dash, if you will, information to say, stop.
Yes.
Deal with this.
Yes.
And so, it's another tool that's going to help small, medium-sized enterprises and businesses compete and be healthy and thrive in the world and in the marketplace, which is what our listeners are up to, is helping small, medium-sized businesses with their finances, being the shepherd of their finances. So let's talk a little bit about how intelligent revenue is going to help our listener grow their business.
Oh, absolutely. So for us, our biggest partnership is bookkeepers and accountants, but primarily bookkeepers because they're closer to the coalface. We believe in, and I know that you've got your summit coming up, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, is together we're stronger, which fits in so nicely with your theme, Together We Rise. Because bookkeepers are so close to the coalface, we believe that their clients want their help. And so we give them the tools. And by us showing small and medium-sized businesses that they can have better credit control, that they can have access to this intelligence, they're going to grow their businesses and be healthier. So we have a really good, but we have a really comprehensive intelligent partner program, which gives bookkeepers all the tools they need to promote the service to their clients, to onboard them. We look after all of that, and we look after their clients and help guide them along the way. But because we know that relationship is so important, we also make sure that the bookkeepers get rewarded and that they're able to earn some extra money off of the monthly payments that come in so that they can grow their own businesses, because everybody needs that extra cash flow to help them be more innovative, to hire their staff, to train their staff better. And I think by us standing together and being the change makers, we can really start to drive a cultural change across the world that will then hopefully in 10, 20 years' time, our payment landscape will look completely different.
So true. I love this, and I think it's another opportunity to offer a solution that really helps small businesses, and as well is a solution that helps both the person that's helping, our bookkeeper, our listener, but dramatically helps small businesses, and everyone gets to share in that valuable solution. You mentioned the summit. Super excited about the summit. It is December 2nd. This is our very first summit, the Successful Bookkeeper Summit, and the theme being Together We Rise. And I just loved what you brought and what you were doing. We're always looking for what are those cutting edge solutions that are being developed in the world for bookkeepers that are going to help them win in business. And you're up to that, and why I'm excited to have you speaking at the summit. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be speaking about at the summit?
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to talk about how you are able to get more from the relationships you already have. So kind of with my marketing hat on, there's different ways that you make more money. You get new business in, you sell more stuff to the people that are already in your business, and you kind of mine those relationships a little bit more. And I know that bookkeepers and accountants can sometimes think selling is a bit of a dirty word, but it's not. It's about how you are providing the solutions that businesses need to grow to where they want to be. And so we're going to delve deeper into those relationships and how you get more out of those relationships so that you're not necessarily working harder, just smarter.
Exciting. I absolutely love it. I love what we do here with the Successful Bookkeeper, in that we're bringing people like yourself from the United Kingdom and your views. And I mean, our listener, I'm sure, if you're not from the UK, you're hearing these different sayings. Those sayings are indicators. There's different things happening there, and we can learn so much from people from different countries and what they're dealing with and how they're dealing with things. We have speakers from the United States. We have speakers from Canada. We have speakers from Australia. It is really a valuable opportunity to be able to put all of these things together and all of this great content together. Another listener, another reason to get registered. If you haven't already, you're probably tired of me talking about it, but please get registered. It's free. Go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/summit. Super exciting, and it's coming up. Now, we've been talking about intelligent revenue, and you'll be able to hear Leanne speak about how to actually get more from your relationships, how to do the multiplication factor with the relationships you already have. I mean, that is just too exciting. Intelligent revenue. When and how can people get to learn more?
So our website has just launched. It is www.intelligent-revenue.com. And if you're interested in becoming a partner, all you need to do is look for the early access tab and register your details. And one of my team will reach out to you, talk you through the process, explain to you how it works, and we'll get you set right up. It doesn't cost anything. And we provide all the marketing material you need. So we handhold, and we'll take it from there with you. So that's intelligent-revenue.com, and look for the early access tab.
Beautiful. Well, of course, we'll put a link in our show notes. And so this doesn't cost our listener anything. It's for likely people who are pioneers in wanting to have the cutting edge solutions for their clients and for their own business. And so if that's you, listener, because you're listening to this podcast, that's likely you. So that's super exciting. Great opportunity. The link will be there. Leanne, this has absolutely been wonderful. And on behalf of our listener, I want to thank you for your generosity in coming and sharing what you've learned through your career journey and how you're helping our listener, bookkeepers, build their business and the community of business owners, and also for being a guest at our summit and coming and speaking at our summit. Truly wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. It's been absolutely lovely to be here today.
Thank you. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.